Three, two, one.
All right. Hello, guys. Welcome back. We are doing another podcast episode today. I don't remember my intro. I've been up for 20 minutes. So, yeah. Today, we are going to be talking about a topic that's been pretty at the top of mind for a lot of people recently, and that's like AI in general. We'll talk about like ChatGPT, a bunch of different tools there, maybe some ethical concerns and things like that associated with all these technologies. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I thought we would have a fun conversation on this topic since a lot of us have, or all of us have a tech background here. Yeah. So to start with, though, I guess we could lightly enter into this first. That doesn't make any sense. Um, Clearly, I
So
just
light,
woke up.
as light
It's
as a
only been
feather.
up, only been up for 20
Uh
minutes.
huh. Before we actually jump into our topic, let's go around and see what the last week has entailed for each of us.
So who's going first?
Yo, I got this. I
Okay.
got this.
All
'Cause I don't have
right,
much
all
to
right.
say. But so last week, my piano just arrived, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. I set that shit up. I've been playing it every night, and honestly, it has had such a not dramatic, but it has had a substantial change on my mood. Like, I feel so much better at the end of every day. Like, I come home, I play piano for like 20, 30 minutes, and like, I don't know, I just feel great. Um, Yeah, so that's all that's really changed. Other than that, I was just going to work and whatnot. But um, yeah, finally playing some music again has been awesome. So
Nice. That's really cool.
yeah,
In that same week, I have not played piano at all.
let's go. All right.
I've been coloring a bit more though, because I bought these pens that I've been trying to test out here and there.
Yeah, I saw that we were talking about that
Yeah.
before. With your adult coloring book.
Yes, with my adult coloring book that I haven't touched in a year. Yeah, so I've just been messing with that, planning to make potentially a review on those pens or whatever, just for fun. But I've just been doing that in my free time, like while watching shows in the background and stuff. So that's been pretty cool. Apart from that, though, it's been pretty stressful work week. So I feel like outside of work hours, I've just been trying to relax. Yeah.
Makes sense. And if you want to see the review of those pens, click that subscribe button
Yeah, guys. Yeah, it'll
below
come
the
out
video. Click that
eventually.
subscribe button. Like this video if you enjoyed Albert talking about his pens.
Of course, of course.
Subscribe if you want to hear more about pens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, pens. Yeah. But
What about you,
no, my
Alex?
week was good though. My week was good. Most of it was spent chilling at home, but I went out with a couple friends last night. We got some food and we went to a pool hall and played a couple games of pool, which I hadn't done in a while.
That's
So that
cool.
was fun. Yep.
Nice.
I lost two of the three games, but whatever, it's fine. We're not like any of us were particularly good,
Mm-hmm.
but no, it was still fun though. It was nice seeing the boys again. You know, but
Aren't these
that's pretty much that
your
was like the highlight.
Are these your friends
What?
from back home?
Yeah, my friends from home. Yeah, my
Gotcha.
friends from high school.
Nice,
Yep.
nice.
Cool.
Yep. Yep.
I suck at pool.
Yeah, pool
Yeah,
is tough.
we were playing it a lot, like our freshman and sophomore year, since we had the pool table in the basement. But I really have not touched it much since then, so I am definitely rusty compared to where I would have been, like sophomore year of college. But
Mhm.
I was definitely sucking.
Yeah, I still didn't really go down and play pool with you guys that often. So I would just look at I think
SMH.
Sean and Justin and see them pull out their custom or like their personal pool
Yeah,
cues that are like
yeah,
split in half,
yeah,
twist those
yeah,
together,
yeah.
wear their
Sean had
gloves
the
and
Sean had
everything.
the gloves too. Yeah, Sean had the gloves and
Yeah.
everything.
And I'd be like, what are you guys doing?
We're
I don't
playing
know how this
pool.
game works, man. Why are you
It's
pulling that
not
out?
it's not that complicated.
I know it's not
I
actually that complicated. What I mean is I have no technique in that game. So like
Oh, I don't have any technique either.
yeah.
If I get the ball in the pocket, it's a miracle. It's
Yeah.
90% of the time it's not even the pocket I'm aiming for that I get the ball in.
Bro, I've
This is
missed
how it is.
I've like chipped the I don't know if chip's the right word, but like I've hit the side of the white ball before.
Yeah,
And I'm just
you like miscued or
yeah,
whatever.
and I'm just like
Yeah.
I don't know how to do this. Um
Oh
but
well,
I'm glad you had fun though with your friends.
Albert, we will teach you the lessons when you pull up over the summer.
Uh-huh. I mean, the people at work play pool every now and again at like work events and stuff. Like if they go to a bar or like for like an after
Uh-huh.
party or something. But I have rarely played because I'm just like I'm so bad at this game. I don't want to play.
Well, the only way you're gonna get better is if you play it out.
I know, but like, ugh, it's gross.
Wow. I see how it is. All right. Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess we can jump right into the topic now. Let me just. Oh no. I think that's fine.
No, he's already messed up.
I opened
Falling apart.
a window over our window for a second. That's okay. I will black out that moment. All right. So
Remember to black out that moment.
I guess
You
we
can't
can.
have people seeing your personal information.
I guess we can go around and just quickly. What did you guys actually look into over the last week, so that I know what you guys have like an understanding of?
Yeah, I would actually even just more generally like, what do you guys think are like the like major like, I don't know, advances in AI recently, or like why, or maybe you don't think it's significant. Like, why do you think it is or isn't significant recently?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Well, I think the biggest thing that brought it up to public consciousness was ChatGPT, right? When that released, everyone was just like going crazy with it. And then from there, people started doing like AI art generation, and voice AI is a thing as well right now. So like I think all of that kind of generated from the public becoming very much aware of that technology, and being like, oh my god, this is like a very sophisticated chatbot essentially. And the answers are like very thorough. They're not just like pre-recorded generic drivel that very much doesn't seem like you're talking to a real person. So I think that has been the biggest thing on the public level, but also just the advancements I have like just the advancements in AI technology over the past decade, because like I feel like a lot of technology has been an exponential curve in terms of complexity and capability and stuff like that in like recent years. So I think that's also been a major factor. Like the technology is just better.
yeah, I agree. I think like Chat GPT and these like AI art generation sort of things were very well suited for promotion on social media.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it had a very like human feel to it. And it was very easy to like understand and see like precisely like why it was so um significant. The thing I'm reminded of though when I think about like the like modern AI revolution or whatever is like image classifiers. So like you guys know, I don't know, these things really started blowing up like right around the time we got into college.
Right.
Um, but like
Yeah.
specifically like convolutional neural networks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
guys know like too much about this stuff, like, but like um
I
basically
know a
like,
little bit.
yeah, like 15 years ago, like the best image classifiers on the planet were pretty mediocre. Like the state of the art data sets, they would be hitting like 50, 60% accuracy on some of these classifications, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Not very good. And then and neural nets were like kind of shoddy. They weren't being used in terrible capacity. And then somebody came up with the idea of combining like this like node network style of computing with convolution, which was like an image, you know, an image processing technique. Um, and then once they combined those two things and got like absurd superhuman performance in a lot of like image classification domains, then I think that sort of sparked like the modern like revolution. Like, but so like post convolutional neural networks, image classifiers went from like, I don't know, 60% accuracy to like 99.7 or some shit, like crazy number. Um, and they started like outperforming like doctors in like cancer diagnoses and things like this, like in like a bunch of domains. And so it went from sort of obscure to like, wait a second, maybe neural networks, because like 20 years ago people thought neural networks were like an outside sort of thing. They didn't think they were very useful, you know. Machine learning in general didn't have too many applications. And now suddenly we had like this first like ray of light, which was like, wait a second, maybe neural nets are actually powerful, and maybe there's something more in machine learning. Maybe more people should investigate. And so that was like, I don't know, 2008, 2010, like that sort of era. Um, and then people started pumping a ton of like time and money into it. I'm sure you guys heard like it started hearing about like some like machine learning pushes like in college, right? Like I don't know about you guys, I had never heard the term machine learning until maybe end of high school. Like if I
Yeah,
think about
same.
it,
I mean,
right?
there was a huge push that started happening within the last maybe 5 to 8 years,
Yeah,
something like that. But
exactly.
I think part of that is also the change in the amount of data that we can analyze and store and all of that. Like the amount of data that we're collecting
Right.
now compared to years ago, and the amount of data that we can easily store and process. Those have been like the biggest changes, right? Because memory,
True. Yeah.
like we're not at the dawn of the computing era anymore,
Yeah.
right? We don't need an entire room for a computer, and the amount of data storage that we can have just in our phones or something, right? It's
Right.
Hmm.
immense compared to what we had, and I think that was one of the also the major factors, like the ability to train on that amount of data to increase the accuracy of those types of models. Also had like a huge
That's very
impact.
true.
Um,
That's very true.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then
And I mean, if you think about it, like so, it's like not only has the like availability of data increased. So
mhm,
like you can suddenly like it was like a bunch of things at once. Like we get way more data. We have way more people socializing online. So we have way more data, right? Way more to work with. People see CNNs and are like, wow, wait a second, maybe there's something here. And so they start investigating with it. And then because they're so successful and there's a continuing layer of success. There's like a few more um, major breakthroughs that show sort of the power of these things, right? Then they start getting government funding and they start getting private funding, which means they can do exactly what we were talking about, which is like harvest massive amounts of data and spend
right,
tons of computational power breaking through some barriers. So like I don't know if you guys remember like Google DeepMind did AlphaGo a few years ago. There's like a great documentary online about it. Basically, Go was like the last like major like unsolved board game, like similar like chess and
Yeah,
checkers,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
mhm,
I mean chess was solved, like not solved, but chess defeated like the world champion in like
The chess spots are
late
insane.
1990s, right? Yeah, exactly. Chess bots on your phone can crush the world champion,
mhm,
but that wasn't the case for Go. Um, until I don't know, it was like 2017 or something, where they used reinforcement learning with a neural network, like
right,
as sort of the missing piece of the puzzle. They've been using like sort of the similar techniques for a long time ago, like Monte Carlo search and whatever, but adding that like neural network aspect really like allowed them to make the final leap and defeat like the world's strongest player.
mhm,
Yeah, great documentary of if you have time, like AlphaGo. Anyway, um, but like basically the point I'm trying to make is like that was done with a ton of computational power, and there's no way they would have had the funding to do that. Um, to like harvest all that data. Um, because originally the system was trained on actually human games played. It wasn't a self-play mechanism, so it was just interesting. Um, and so yeah, there's no way they would have the money to like run the system on that. Like if if CNN's hadn't come around, yeah. So I think it's
right.
kind of like this build up. And you're right. Like they get more funding, they have more data. Like the neural nets keep becoming deeper and better, and it's just like exponential curve.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's an interesting thing that's happened. I also I don't actually know what the, let's say, the leap is from having a trained CNN or a trained neural network versus an artificial intelligence. I don't know what that, if there is a jump or distinction there, like what makes them different. I haven't done any research in that, just because I didn't do any like AI related courses during my master's. I just did like CNNs, or I just did like computer vision and machine learning courses for the most part, like in that vein of things. So I never
Right.
even touched upon anything relating to artificial intelligence. Um, yeah, so I would probably be
Yeah.
curious to learn more about that, because it looks like, at least from what I'm understanding, like they're trained on those same, they're trained on neural networks of some kind, and
Yeah.
that's how they're set up. But I don't know what jumps them from that to being an artificial intelligence. I guess it's maybe just the continuous learning aspect of it. I don't know, because I guess the traditional model is you have like a neural network or even a
Yeah.
CNN for images or whatever, and then from there you have your trained model, right? You give it it's split test and train data, and then you run in the train data, see how good your model is, and then you're good to go. But for I guess for a neural network, it's constantly learning, or not a neural network, an AI, it's constantly learning. So like that's how you see some of the videos where we've had like gaslighting of ChatGPT and stuff like that, because it's like continuously being taught new information based off of what it's being told. So maybe that's the difference, that it's continuously learning.
Well, I mean, curious you bring up ChatGPT. My understanding is the model that's available online, at least,
Mhm.
is fixed. It doesn't learn in real time.
Okay.
Like they're not updating it. It's just it has information up to X number of points. I could be wrong about that. But I think there's like I heard some information about like it only has a history up to like 2019 or something. Like
Okay.
I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I think it's interesting. Like I feel like we heard like talking about terms again, like terminology and like
Mhm.
where things come from. Like that we heard a lot about machine learning and neural networks in like I don't know 2015, 2016. Whenever
Right.
it started to come up. But I feel like artificial intelligence was still like a sci-fi term until
Mhm.
like 2 or 3 years ago. Like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the pandemic, like
Yeah.
when did you guys start hearing like AI engineer? Like I've never heard that shit in my life. It sounded
Only
fake,
like in the
right?
past couple years, it's really
Exactly.
become
Right.
the
Only
term. Yeah.
recently. Only
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
recently were people like, okay, like you're an AI expert now. Like what the
Mhm.
fuck? Like that sounds like something out of like some like Asimov book, Like
Right.
this guy is like
And
like it's super to me it's super vague. It doesn't really lend any credit to the actual underlying technology, which is just
Yeah.
machine learning, right?
mhm.
It's just machine
Yeah. Yeah.
learning, right?
I feel like
Um,
the term has
yeah.
only become more prevalent because it's only like in the past. I feel like 2 years or so that there's been like more. It's been more like publicly accessible. Like you have like only in the
Yeah.
past 2 years. It's like you could just like anybody could just like go to like ChatGPT, make an account, and mess around with it,
Right.
or like mess around with like the voice AI or like the image generation, like that doll, like the Dolly E and stuff. That was only like in the past year or two, and so I feel like people who like don't have that deeper understanding of what machine learning is, they're just like, oh, this is like some type of art. This is like artificial intelligence. I
Right.
feel like maybe is a part of why that term has become more and more prevalently used recently. It's just that
Right.
it's
Right.
more like the term that the public is like familiar with. If you like you don't have a tech background, you wouldn't. I feel like you really wouldn't know the term machine learning. You would just think of it as artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
Uh,
That makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe it's easier to like write like an
yeah,
article in the New York Times about an advancement in AI than an advancement in machine learning because nobody's
yeah,
heard of machine learning, right? That
yeah.
that makes a lot of
AI is
sense,
like the buzz.
actually.
AI is like the buzzword. It'll I'll get people to click your article.
Right, right,
Say it's
right.
a
Yeah,
say it's about AI. They're like,
yeah.
ooh, artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
That's like I saw that in like this sci-fi movie. I got to see what's going
Right,
on with
yeah.
that, And then you click the article, and you're like, oh, well,
Right.
yeah.
I do think what's interesting is if you look at anything that Boston Dynamics, the robotics company, comes out with, right? I think
Hmm.
most people would classify everything they do as artificial intelligence, right? But a lot of the times their performances or their videos are like preset instructions, right? At least that's my understanding of it, where like they have a dance routine or something like that, right? So I don't know if that, maybe now they probably also have both, but at least from like maybe 5 years ago when or whenever they first came out with Dot and all of that, like I thought that that was always not artificial intelligence, but I also understood like the public knowledge or the public idea of AI is like Terminator. It's just a robot that can do things or whatever,
Right, right.
beyond like having a human controlling it, right? So I feel like any autonomous vehicle or autonomous machine, right, to some degree is associated with artificial intelligence because I guess on some level it's like it's been provided a level of intelligence to work remotely from a human being, right? So I guess that's like the public consciousness of what it is, right?
Hmm.
And to some degree I would agree that like the line between a preset of instructions where you're giving it sensor data or something, and then based off of that, it's doing whatever it needs to do, like in a warehouse, which is the purpose for a lot of the Boston Dynamics robots, and a lot
Good
of
example,
robots
yeah.
in the similar vein. That is pretty indistinguishable to most people from something like ChatGPT, which just takes whatever your inputs are, and gives you back answers or whatever. I honestly, on a top level, they aren't completely distinct to me either. Maybe on the training end, or maybe on how they're created, right? But I'm sure now, like Boston Dynamics and a lot of these robotics companies are implementing neural nets for training purposes now anyway. So I'm sure if they weren't already blended, I think they are now, right? I think most autonomous
Sure, for
vehicles
sure,
and
yeah.
autonomous robots and chat bots and everything, like I think they're all going to be trained using that methodology now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very different from like what I had in, let's say, like a robotics competition, like an internal competition that we did in maybe freshman year or whatever, where it's like you just have a preset layout of what it's going to do based off of certain inputs, right? And it's like very, very low sophistication level. There's no need for things like training, really. And if it screws up, it kind of screws up. You just kind of throw your arms in the air and you're like, I don't know what's going on here. Whereas I think the biggest difference, right, with artificial intelligence is the adaptability component. And it's like, how would it react to, let's say, a manufacturing robot being dropped into the middle of Manhattan? Like, what would it do? I think that's the distinction. Right.
Take someone hostage. You know,
Right, right. Well, that's
it's the
why.
robotic takeover.
I mean, that's also why robots that are able to have operable weaponry on them are so terrifying. Have you seen like the dot robot? Like, well, it's not a dot robot. It's not from Boston Dynamics, but a very similar dog-like robot that just has like a machine gun mounted
Like
on
a
it.
turret? Oh my
Yeah,
god.
like I've seen.
Intended for like warfare.
Yeah, that's what it seems to be the purpose. But like, I looked at this maybe a year or so ago or something like that. But there are robots like that that are specifically being designed for
Dude,
weaponry.
you just reminded me actually. There was a crazy news article, and honestly, a lot of stuff coming out of Russia, Ukraine's propaganda, so maybe it was fake. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Um, but the story was that Russia had started using semi-autonomous drones to shoot at Ukrainian tanks, and they
Oh
had like
wow.
trained it off of like a Ukrainian tank data set or whatever, right?
Uh huh.
Right. And so basically the story was not about this per se. I mean, although that in itself is crazy. But basically, the Russians had captured one of the Ukrainian tanks and were using it for themselves, and their
Mm-hmm.
own drone shot their own the captured Ukrainian tank with Russians inside. Um, so anyway,
That's
yeah,
really funny.
the danger is definitely there when
Uh huh.
you sort of like hastily throw on
Right.
some AI technology and
Yes.
then
I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't know
because
if it's at like a point like that yet. I feel like in the next 5 to 10 years, you'll see it definitely get to a point where it's like that. I think now, as of right now, to me, it just seems like this is more. It's right now just more like like a novelty thing that like, oh, people can make the president say funny things for a meme video.
right.
You know, I feel like in the unless like within like the next 5 to 10 years is when you're going to really see it start getting more practical uses as the technology continues to advance. I
Mm-hmm.
think right now it's in like that niche stage like the early internet was like in like the 90s where like not
yeah,
everybody had it and it was just like, oh, there's this cool thing I could send someone an electronic mail, and they
Right.
can get it with it in like 5 minutes. But now it's like everybody uses the internet for whatever the hell they use it for. It's like we're definitely in like that stage of the AI. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
the early like niche period where it's just starting to get
right.
like widestream or like mainstream adoption.
Right. Yeah, I will say it is. It's definitely still the wild, wild west, right? We haven't hit the
Mm-hmm.
point where it's like, yes, we have all the rules
Yeah.
in place, and you can see that still with a lot of the ethical questions that are popping up, right, around
Yeah.
this.
Yeah,
Um,
Tom Scott just made an interesting video about this like a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you guys saw it, but he was talking about
who did?
ChatGPT. Tom Scott, do you know Tom Scott?
I
Ooh, it
don't
sounds familiar actually.
know.
He's
I don't
like
know,
that
but
British YouTuber. He does like a bunch of like science and engineering videos and stuff.
yeah,
He
I
made
think I
one
might
like
have
a
seen
couple
him.
weeks ago about ChatGPT and about where AI is headed. I could send it since it's relevant to the conversation, so you guys could look at it later.
Yeah, definitely send it over.
But
I'd be curious to check that out. I did
well, it
watch.
was definitely an interesting watch.
Yeah, I think that there are some interesting ethical technology questions that are popping up in general right now.
Yeah.
And there's like the question of, are you able to take someone's voice and use that for yourself? Are you able to train a neural net or a CNN based off of image data that people haven't said that you're allowed to use yet or whatever? And that applies a lot to like AI art generation, right? A lot of people have been talking about that. And then there's also, I don't know if this is also AI technology, but deepfake technology has
No,
also,
that's it. Yeah, I would think that's AI.
yeah, come into a lot of scrutiny as well. I mean,
There was just that whole. I don't know if you guys follow like I guess it's like streamer
the Cutie
drama.
Cinderella story or whatever.
Yes, yeah. That one.
What's the guy's name?
Bro.
Atrioc,
It
I
was
think.
Atrioc.
Bro,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah.
I loved Atrioc videos, by the way. Please don't
I
cancel
never
me,
watched
but
him.
like,
I just know him from the drama. I never.
like, dude,
Yeah.
Not familiar with his
I
stuff.
used to watch all his videos because they were so great. He did like, okay, we can go into the whole story, but I'm just quickly on Atrioc. Like, dude, this guy was great. He was funny as fuck, and like, he gave like great like marketing breakdowns of like different like strategies companies were using, and like really went into depth and sort of gave you like an behind the scenes.
Right.
He would do like Shark Tank reviews and be like, yeah, that deal was stupid. They could, their products were way less money, whatever. Anyway, it was awesome. Honestly really like informative stuff, but also entertaining. Yeah. So then he got canceled now. Anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you were doing that, like how stupid do you have to be to like, oh, I stream and I'm recording my desktop. Let me just leave this window
hold
open.
on. We got to give the full context.
Okay. So basically, I'm sure the audiences already know.
This was a pretty big story, but in case you don't know,
yeah. And I think Philip DeFranco has been going over this every.
Yeah, he has.
Too.
That's where I heard it mostly from. Yeah.
So basically, this streamer Atrioc, right? He's on stream one day and he goes and alt tabs, right? So for any tech illiterates out there, alt tab will show.
First of all, if you're tech illiterate and gotten this far into a podcast talking about AI and have not fallen asleep yet, congrats.
You're on the wrong podcast.
That is true. But basically, when you press alt tab, all of your windows will pop up in like mini windows on your screen, and you can switch between them for like what you want to switch to, right? And somebody
definitely blew someone's mind with that. They're like, "What? I could do that."
I mean, I personally don't really use it. I just have gotten so
I
used
use it all the
clicking,
time. I alt tab everything.
Use it. I've only used it when I had issues with when we were on stream. Switching out of Skyrim, but anyway, that's besides the point.
That's besides the point.
So what happened is at least one person, but probably like dozens of people, because for some reason people like doing this stuff when they're watching streamers. They looked over the footage of that specific moment, looked at what tabs this dude had open, and
so
then
creepy, by the way.
Yeah, it is, but like. They noticed that he had open a pornographic website that was specific for deepfake pornography. So what this meant was
like other streamers that he was like friends with.
Yes,
that's like the insane part.
I think that's the worst part.
People, people he like was actively friends with.
Right. Strange choice.
Insanity.
It's so wild.
So I didn't leave that open when you know you're recording your desktop. Like I don't know how you have that thought process. Why not just close that tab?
Well, I guess if you're in there in the first place, you're probably not in the best state of mind. You know?
Right.
That's true.
Anyway.
But it's just strange because it's like, I feel like if you're a famous streamer, at that point you should have your own work desktop to begin with, right? I'm not talking about the ethics of like what he did just yet.
No, I agree. No, I agree. That's what I'm saying.
You should have a separate desktop. What's wrong with you? Anyway, in terms of what he actually did, right? The biggest controversy around this is, well, first off, there's a topic of, these women have not specifically allowed themselves to be put in those types of positions and those things that are happening in the video, and especially because it's of a sexual nature, where is the morality there? And honestly, I agree with that idea, because yes. Anyway, yeah, so I totally understand that. I think it's even more insane, and I think it's like terrible to do that to people that you know, right? That's what I think is like the worst.
No, that's the insane part.
The crux of the issue is like, how could you be friends or colleagues with people and look at them with a straight face and do that as well? Now, my understanding is that he had a defense as to the video was either sent to him or he saw a link for it.
No,
and
I think he said. I think he in his really crappy apology video where he was like he had his wife crying behind him or something. I guess to like trying to get sympathy points or whatever.
So weird, dude.
Yeah, which is so weird. I think he was saying something like it was like an ad on like whatever. I guess he was like on like like Pornhub or something. He got like an ad, and he was like, "Oh, I was curious," and I clicked it, and then like I made an account, I paid for it. But it was just out of curiosity. I swear it wasn't like anything weird or creepy. It was just I just saw the ad and I was curious, so I clicked it, and then made the account and bought it, and then never closed the tab, and accidentally got outed myself by leaving the tab open. But I swear I'm not creepy.
Seems pretty intentional, yeah. Yeah. Okay, but here, so Albert, I'm generally with your take that like I feel like the stuff is doing more harm than good, right? Let me just play devil's advocate for a second to kind of like poke around and see like where exactly do you guys feel like the boundary really lies?
Right.
Because for example, okay, so this was of a sexual nature, right? Yes. And there's obviously serious problems, like sort of like the objectification of, I assume, is probably all women, right?
Yeah.
That's problematic, right? But okay,
I doubt many girls care to see dudes doing that.
Yeah, like okay, I mean, I don't know. I don't.
I feel like it's rarer. I feel like it's rarer.
I do.
It's definitely possible, but it's rarer. Anyway,
let's say it was, for example, of a non-sexual nature.
Right. That is the big question, right?
Right. And let's say they created some footage of like, I don't know, X famous streamer in some like saying something that they wouldn't normally say that paints them in a bad light. It's a bad look, but it's non-sexual. How do you guys feel about that?
So, the first time I ever saw a deepfake was, I think, when I was watching like a YouTube video from an MIT like lecture, right? It was the start of, I think, their machine learning course or something like that, or maybe it was something like that. I forget exactly what the course was, but they had Barack Obama doing an intro for the course, right? And I thought that was so dope. Like, it looks cool. I don't think there's any harm in that, right? And I'm like, I very much doubt that Obama is going to be like, that's unethical. I very much doubt that, or like anyone can really argue with that. I think it was a cool demo to see what that technology is capable of doing. And I think the question is, well, what are the actual applications that are allowed? And I think that there are, I think in meme culture, I think is 100%. Like you can make like a 5 to 10 minute to a 1 minute video for a TikTok and like just do something fun and like satirical and like create something cool with that stuff. I think there are things like that, and I think regardless of what you do there, some people will get offended, some people won't care, and some people will find it funny, and that's just life. Okay, there's nothing you can really do about that. I think the line becomes when you put people in, let's say, compromising positions. So like say they're spewing hate speech, or well, this is also difficult because it's like what people would classify as that is there's different lines for different people.
It's just difficult right now because it's all a gray area, because there's AI's like a new technology. There's like no regulation or any laws in place to stop any type of like this, like. Because like the whole thing was that QTC on the road was trying to like sue the person who made the website, but like every lawyer she went to said like there wasn't really like a case, there wasn't really anything that they could sue on because there's just no laws surrounding anything around this. You can't, there's no basis for anything. Like right now it's just a complete Wild West. I think it's definitely like right now I would say it's definitely like a very morally gray area. Like how far is like pushing it too far? Like obviously like Biden and making a Biden in like a Minecraft video,
Mm-hmm.
I think is probably not pushing the line. But then like I saw it was like a week or two ago on Twitter that there was like a deep fake going around. It was like a fake Biden, but on CNN saying that he was going to enlist the national draft to help in Ukraine. And there are people out there who are actually like thinking it was real,
Right.
and like it was causing like hysteria. Like,
Yeah.
so like
Okay,
I see it, but I think that's definitely like crossing the line. But like, so the line is somewhere in between, Minecraft video and national draft. But like, where is that line exactly is hard to determine right now. I feel like, well, how far would be pushing it too far?
So let's say, what do you think about this? Like, is the line at misinformation? Because what seems to me like the difference between the Minecraft video and the draft is that one you could take for real, right? And it's not apparently obvious that it's wrong, and then the other is just obviously like satirical, right? So
Hey man,
like,
you don't know their private lives. They could have a server going.
hey,
I
man,
I like
that's
to
true.
believe
That's
that. Okay.
all right. And I'm sure some 10-year-old kid probably believed it too. But
Yeah, like I think the line is that like if someone was able to interpret it as real, like if someone thought it was real, it doesn't cause them like negative harm is where the line is.
Right.
Like if someone thought like, wow, Biden is like playing Minecraft, like if they believed it was real, like that's not causing like any type of like negative impact or like not causing them like like any type of hysteria or anything. It's just like, oh, okay, they're playing Minecraft. Right, but like if someone looks at like that draft video and was like, "That's real," they're gonna like freak out, like, oh my, am I going? Like, what's going on? Like, am I going to Ukraine now? Like, when is going to happen? Like, so I think the line is like there. Like, if it's if interpreted as real, if it's like how like freedom of speech has a line where it's like if you're not impacting like others negatively, where it's like that's what they say like don't scream fire in a crowded movie theater. I feel like it's kind of like a similar line where it's like if it's causing like a negative impact on like a large group of people, or even like just like causing negative impact on those people is probably when it's crossed the line.
Right.
I think say it's like about the public harm is
yes,
basically what you would say.
Yes.
Like, is it harming other people if this content is seen by them?
There is a difficulty there though, because it's like different people will have different thresholds, different communities will have different beliefs as to whether or not something's harmful, right? So it's like now every different community is going to be like, oh, this bothers me or doesn't bother me or whatever. And then you have to pick and choose as to who you're going to agree with and side with. There's also the another thing that I think is difficult here is with how large of the divide is now that's being created in the country, right? And like there's also like the mistrust of news outlets and stuff like that. It's like, where do you go to make sure that information is correct, right? Because if you go to like a popular news outlet, you're going to think that it's biased potentially, versus like if you see it online, there's just no way to verify anything. There's very little security in like the plausibility or correctness of information. So it's like there's nowhere to look to right now, or you could be like, that is the objective, just both sides of whatever's being told is true, the information sources have been verified, like all of this is correct. There's nowhere that I think most people would point to for that.
Okay, let's say, right, for the sake of the argument, that the deep fake itself has like shows like some famous figure having like saying some terrible shit, that would easily get them canceled, right? But it has a watermark on it saying this is a deep fake, don't take this seriously, right?
Yeah,
ethical question
so
mark?
that was my initial thought process when I was thinking about this earlier this week, and I was like, well, would a watermark work? Well, the question is, that might help people for the misinformation aspect, right? It will not prevent the sexual content from existing, right?
Yeah, I was talking about like, I don't know, some racist or something. But okay, but that works too.
So I think that could work in the context of the deepfake technology that is being used for misinformation of like political figures or like people that have very clear like clout in specific areas, very clear like knowledge bases, right? And the people looking to them are looking to them for information. And I think that would be a potential avenue. I think that there's still the possibility that people could add that watermark later on, artificially, or remove that watermark artificially.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, especially as technology gets
So
more
again,
complex.
it becomes an issue
Uh,
of misuse by the public and
Yes.
like the
Yeah,
protection of
I don't think a watermark is enough to stop it, because if like the AI technology gets as widespread in like common places like the
Right.
internet is today, like what's not stopping someone from just like taking an audio and then just remaking the video without the watermark and then posting it somewhere else?
Okay.
I was
Like,
thinking if you add,
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know about this because this is also another Wild West technology still right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put it on a verified blockchain with an NFT, right? And you have
What?
this is like the problem right now, because that technology is also like whatever the hell
Okay.
it is right now.
But if you do that for a video, can't you just also just do the exact same thing, take it off, like copy it, and then
So
all it does is that
it
makes
goes-
it you have an original identifier for the original
Right,
video,
right.
right?
So
Like that doesn't
like
stop
every
from
like every
re-uploads
every
remove the
single
right,
watermark.
person.
so it wouldn't stop.
That's like
from
how everybody was
re-uploads,
memeing
but-
about how I'll just screenshot the NFT.
Right,
Like,
right,
it doesn't
right.
stop
So,
anything.
so
Yeah,
it
yeah,
would
exactly.
show what it would show is the, I guess, the history and source of the original video, and this
Only to the people who are actually monitoring.
Yeah,
like,
that doesn't really
Right,
stop anything.
right.
Like if I screenshot a monkey NFT, I don't have it doesn't have any information on where that came from. It's just
right. Well,
it's just another image I have saved to the
my
computer.
question would be then, in order to post on social media, should it have a verification system or like a chain of history as to where that image came from, like an original image?
Ooh, so okay,
Just
so
for the
now
So
we're
you're
internet,
saying-
making
just for the internet
now
in
we're
general,
making a system
like,
of verification where you
Right.
can only post if you're verified by the poster. Ooh, so now
Right.
you want to censor freedom of speech, Albert? See, that's messed
well,
up.
well,
Anyway.
well, the thought process here would be that, like, for image data or like things like that, right? You can create you would have to have an NFT for that technology in order to post that information somewhere, right? So you'd have an original image,
You
and
would have to have some sort of like
so you're saying like everything
some
that's
sort of cryptographic string that confirms this is valid in some way.
well, it would check the blockchain
Oh,
for it, I guess.
well, I think what
So,
you're
like,
saying is like everything that gets uploaded to like every time I upload like an image to like Twitter, for example, it gets like a unique like blockchain identifier. So that way, if anybody like reposts it or
Well,
anything,
if
it can be traced back.
I copy
what
and
you're saying?
paste
so-
and repost, it'll have a new unique identifier and it'll look just as valid now.
well, so what you would
That
do
is also true.
what you would do instead is maybe only allow one version of the image, the first
what do
image
you mean,
that's posted,
bro?
right? So like say
Well,
I
they can't even control that.
What
If I copy and paste it and then just change it a little bit so to get around the
Right.
filter that is checking for a similar image
Yeah.
and then post it? Nothing's
I
gonna
don't know, man.
stop
You
that.
create an AI to verify. all
I
information.
mean, like people already have
Like,
ways of getting
if
around
a-
that. Like
Right,
YouTube
right.
has a whole
100
copyright system, and then
if
all
a-
you have to do is flip the video around, and then YouTube doesn't realize it's copyright.
Yeah.
So I
If
mean,
a
like that
million
system is
people
already proved
visit
not to work.
If a million people visit Niagara Falls and they all take a picture of Niagara Falls with iPhone 14 in the
Right.
exact same spot, right? Each of them should have the right to their own picture, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think your system's gonna work, bro. I'm saying it right now. I think that is too overcomplicated and has way too many holes in it.
I do believe that there maybe like 15 years down the line there could be a way of verification on the blockchain that
There
is
could
possible.
be like,
But like I don't know what that
yeah,
is.
okay.
I'm very ignorant to
Yeah.
the technology.
Yeah.
So like
See, even some like large scale like AI like public surveillance of a given network, like it scans
Right.
over every new tweet and it cross checks to see if there's like similarities, right? You could make
Right.
an AI to like check if somebody reposts the exact same thing but like with no watermark. You could do that. It would just be very computationally expensive to check over every,
Right.
but
Well, the question is for videos like
anyway.
that, right, where
Yeah.
it's where it's misinformation or sexual content or whatever. It's like what would be the method to verify, right? Because if it's not going to be a watermark. Like I would love if it was as simple as a watermark, right? Because that's like also the first thing that you think of, right? Because that's what we've had for years now. It's like a company owns an image, they put a watermark on it, you know that the person who downloaded it doesn't actually own that image. It doesn't prevent the spreading of that video or image, but in regards to misinformation, it will show people that the image isn't real. The problem there is, well, you can just pull out the audio there, so you just have the audio, and then you don't know whether or not that's real. So that's still a question mark, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
but so misinformation is a key problem here, right?
Right.
So I have two avenues I want to go down with this. Okay. First. Okay, watermark was just one idea, right? But okay, I don't think we can work around that.
The
Whatever.
watermark is not going to work, I don't think.
Let's say we create some information which is like, or some information like a deepfake that's so absurd it's obvious to nearly everybody, right?
Right.
I mean, we have to take it with a grain of salt. There are always going to be like some small minority of people who are just doo-doo, you know. But like, let's say we make a deepfake that's obvious to pretty much everybody. That's ridiculous, but it's but it's demeaning or something. Obviously, clearly, whoever it's a deepfake of doesn't want their image being portrayed like this, right? Right. Unethical or not, like, should that sort of thing be allowed? Should it be protected by freedom of speech, or should this type of is this type of slander too far?
I think it's probably too far. I feel like it's almost like identity theft almost. If you're co-opting like someone's identity and using it to say something that they wouldn't say. I feel like the person who is the person in that video should have a right to sue you for like, you know, the defamation or like some type of.
Is it identity?
I mean, even
theft,
if
it's obvious that it wasn't that person who said that, right? Like if it's obvious to everyone observing, let's just say hypothetically for the sake of the argument, right? If it's obvious to everyone who watches it that it's not that person who said it, if it's obviously dissociated from that person, like, is it actually identity?
I mean, you're saying in like a hypothetical where 100% of people know that it's fake.
Let's say 99.8% of people know that it's fake.
What makes it so the question is, what makes it obvious that it's not actually them? Is it the voice artifacts that are present in the video? Is it the facial features themselves? Are they slightly off? Are they changing?
I think he's saying it's like the content in the video, like they say something so ridiculous that.
Okay,
well, so not even just let's say something like physically impossible happens. They start flying or some shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's very obvious that like this wasn't an actual recording of this person.
So
right?
so I wouldn't classify that under misinformation at that point if they're flying in the video. But
no, it's not.
I thought you were saying something where it's them like saying like racial slurs or something, where it's like some words like everybody.
This is a
they're just saying something inappropriate, something immoral, or they're doing something immoral or whatever. Okay. So a couple things here. I think that if there are voice artifacts or whatever, that very clearly makes it seem like it's not the person talking. Or if the video is very clearly like there are glitches with their face or whatever because it's not a perfect deepfake or things like that. I think it still has to have a watermark at that point. I would say that it has to have a watermark. I think regardless, a deepfake should be forced to have a watermark.
We just proved that watermarks aren't going to work.
Let's say watermarks do work, right? Albert, what functionally is the watermark providing that we don't already have if we're assuming that nearly everybody in the population actually understands this isn't real?
So there are a couple of things, right? Let's say 10 years down the line, someone finds this video and doesn't immediately realize that it's completely fake, right?
Okay.
Or like, if, for example, I would classify this in the same vein as 10 years ago or 20 years ago when the internet was just starting. Whenever Twitter first came out, you're just like a 15-year-old moron, and you're saying jokes that were appropriate at that time, right? People don't understand the context of that video or that text, right? And they feel like they're judging it by today's standards, right? So then you go to the future, and they don't understand that they're not saying that verbatim, or they're not actually meaning that, right? Then go 10 years in the future. In our case, right, people don't necessarily know what that person looked like 10 years ago. They don't obviously notice that their voice is completely different. Maybe they think they just have a bad microphone. Maybe they think that the lighting's strange or something like that. But
I'll give it to you.
Right?
I'll give it to you. So okay, then my follow-up question would be, yes. I'll give you that one. What? Like, would you say it's ethical to post something like that if there was a watermark?
I don't think so.
Why?
But what's the difference between that and Donald Trump ranting about his diamonds being missing or something like that? You know, like I don't see.
Well, one of them is just funny, and one of them is like defamatory and like.
Yeah, I think if like the way you're construing what the person's saying is like defamatory in nature and it paints them a bad light, I don't think that's ethical. Like I said, I don't know if identity theft's the right word, but it's like you're co-opting like them to ruined their image. Basically, I guess
Well,
it's
okay,
more like
I guess
defamation.
how is this
Right?
different than like a political cartoon? Let's say you strongly disagree with their purposes, right? And you you
Right.
exaggerate what they're saying to make a point.
Well, it's different. I feel like it's different in a political cartoon because like it's not like when like a deep fake. It's not like it's exaggerated. It just looks like them. So if, to an untrained eye, you would think it's just them. Where if you look at a political cartoon, I think it's clear that it's like, oh, obviously this is like it's
No,
already
but,
usually
but
like like
we're
they're
saying
drawn
we're saying
or
we
like
have the watermark. We're saying that we have the watermark, so it's obvious that it's not them.
I don't have any faith in these watermarks. I
God damn it.
uh,
Okay, whatever you gotta do to make sure it's obvious it's not them, right? Like, you know?
Right. So I think that this was an interesting thing. Another thing that popped up in my brain this
Yeah.
week, and it
Mhm.
was if you have a photorealistic image, right, of
Mhm.
someone doing something or in a situation that they weren't in, is that in any way different from a photorealistic uh image that was created in a traditional artistic medium, right? So, for example, if you have a hyper realistic charcoal or graphite drawing that looks exactly like the person and it's not very, you can't distinguish it from, like, say, a black and white image. There are
Right.
artists that can do that. There are plenty of artists that can do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. I know what you're
What if
talking
that
about,
artist creates a series of them and creates a stop motion video
yeah.
so it
Mhm.
looks exactly like a video of that
Mhm.
person, right?
Mhm.
Is that in any way different from a deepfake? And I was thinking
I mean,
about this, and I don't think that functionally it's any
materially,
different.
no, it's no difference. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm like, is that in any way more or less moral? And I don't think so. I think it's the same question, right?
Same question.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think in those contexts, people haven't asked those questions, right? You're allowed to draw whoever the hell you want and have it be as realistic as you want it to be, and no one's going to bat an eye, right? So the question is, where is that line?
Well, are you though?
I think
Hold
so.
on, hold on, hold on, Albert. Hold on, Albert. Hold on, Albert. Let's say you started like, okay, let's not use you. Let's use me instead, because I don't want to. I don't want to like get you canceled, bro. All right. All right. Let's not use me. This is fucked up. Let's use like
Let's use
I
person
don't
person
X.
know.
X.
Person X, right?
I won, Alex.
Has
Feel bad.
right. Okay. Let's craft a situation. Okay, person X, man, right,
Mhm.
has friend Y, woman, right?
Right.
Okay. Woman is not interested in person X, and person X knows this, right? Person X
Okay.
goes ahead and draws like hyper realistic pornography of person Y, right? Doesn't share it with anybody, right? Now, by your previous statement,
Hmm.
anyone should be allowed to draw anything they want,
Right.
right? But is this ethical when the person Y has explicitly told person X that
Well,
they they don't want any sort of like sexual involvement with person X?
hmm. I don't know. I
Tough
don't.
question.
I
It's a very
don't
Yeah.
tough
know
question. Very tough
Yeah,
question.
I
because
think it's. I don't think it's that like you were saying that drawings are completely. You're okay to draw whatever you want. I think people have gotten in trouble for drawing stuff all the time. Like say again, like person X really hates person Y in school because they're they
Mhm.
bullied him or whatever. And then it's like they draw something where they draw something in their notebook where it's like like them like stabbing them or something like something
right.
like that. Do you think that by you saying like anybody who draws anything,
I would say it's okay. I
you
would
would
say it's
think it's
okay.
okay?
I would
I
say
would
that's
say it's
okay
okay.
too
Yep.
because there's a difference here. Um, so so regardless of how realistic that information, that drawing or even text or whatever you're writing or drawing creatively, whatever you're doing, right? I
Mhm.
consider those things as an expression and release of emotion as well.
So
And
you think if
so
somebody wrote like something down where it's like I really want to I'm person X and I really want to kill person Y, you think that's okay? So isn't that's like the whole the way they like even
right.
flag like things like school shooters and stuff to always to begin with because they're always like they post on Facebook like, oh how I just bought a gun and I'm gonna go like shoot up
Right.
this like that. It's not
So
like they can just say whatever they want. They get
right.
reprimanded for that.
I think
So
that it
I
is.
think it's,
I think on the social media level, it is important to still flag that information and make sure things are okay and see where that person actually is. I think that some people also just need to release um, in different ways. Some people use athletics, some people use art, some people use music. Whatever your outlets are, you can use them to release negative emotions as well, right? And so the question is, what are you doing with that stuff after the fact, right? I think that if you draw some very dark images or whatever, if that is going to prevent you from actually doing something worse in the real world, I think that's more ethical to allow them to do that versus allow them to do that in the real world, right? But it's difficult because it's like, well, is them doing that a precursor to them doing the actual deed, or is that just a release, right? I think for some people it's a release, and for some people it's not. So distinguishing between that is hard, and I'm like, I don't
it's
know.
not like I don't think they do distinguish it by the second you say that. You definitely immediately put on like a watch list, regardless if you plan on doing it or not.
Okay, well, let's say like to give.
I don't think
like,
it's a case by case basis.
Right.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, I would say it definitely is. Like, I'm saying, let's imagine a situation where like, okay, I would say I'm most interested in this question in the context of you create this form of highly offensive like media, but you don't share it with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You keep it only to yourself. Right? I'm interested, is that questionable? Because obviously, if you're sharing this like incredibly offensive, like either sexual or violent material, like with the public, it's gonna have larger ramifications, right? But I guess my question is here. Let's say, just for the benefit of the doubt, like that someone creating, let's say someone has like some, I don't know, violent, aggressive tendencies or whatever, right? And they manage that by actually, I think violence doesn't really drive home the issue, right? Let's say someone has some like, I don't know, unfortunate sexual tendencies, right? And they deal with that through art, right? Like, and they don't share it with anybody,
Right?
But they're also aware that like they know if they did, they would be upsetting people.
I was saying the fact that they're keeping it to themselves, I think automatically shows that it is probably unethical. The fact that they are unwilling to share it and they keep it to themselves means that it is inherently unethical.
Well, I mean, okay,
like if you're drawing some like weird like sexual stuff and you're like, I probably shouldn't show this to anybody. It's because you know that people are going to look at you in a negative light if you do share it.
Right. So I would say then I would say the only assumption you can make there is that they're aware that the act of showing it to other people is unethical. As a difference.
Well, the act of showing to them is unethical because what they have drawn is unethical to begin with, I feel like. Like if you're not willing, if I draw like some, some like pornographic image of person A, and I don't want to show it to anybody, I know that like inherently what I've drawn is unethical because if I show it to anyone, I will be ousted as unethical.
Right.
Yeah. See, I don't agree. So like imagine like imagine they don't draw it, right? But it's in their head, right? Is it unethical for them to like I don't know, like envision these things, right? Like,
I don't think so
you know
at all,
what I mean?
because I mean, have you ever heard of puberty?
Yeah, I mean, people have like intrusive thoughts all the time, right?
Like,
as far as I'm concerned, they're just putting like idea to page.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, maybe unethical is not the right word, but if you like, we're still going by like this first example where you said where it's like person X is like interested in person Y, but person Y has nothing to do with them.
Right.
Like I feel like thinking like constantly like, or they're thinking about like having like these weird sexual fantasies about them. I don't know if it's unethical, but even like I feel like just thinking that it feels like that's weird.
So
unhealthy.
Yeah,
it's unhealthy. That might be a better word. Unhealthy. Maybe not unethical. Maybe it wasn't the right word. It's unhealthy.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say more than maybe it's unethical.
Yeah, I think there is a distinction there when compared to like if you like someone and you know that maybe they don't like you or something like that, but then like you think about them if you're like say in class with them or something like that, or
that's different. If they like flat out rejected you and you're still like you're having like these like overt sexual fantasies, it's definitely unhealthy at that point.
Right.
I don't know if it's
unhealthy.
I don't know if it's maybe
I don't know if it's
it would be switch more to unethical if it's like maybe like we were talking before, like you draw like art of like sexual art of them and then share it online, that's when it becomes more unethical.
That's clearly
It's
that's
gotten
revenge
unhealthy
at that
to the point where
yes.
it's now unethical.
Yes.
Yes,
Like, it's gotten unhealthy to the point where it's now unethical.
Yeah, so I guess to give like fair credit to your argument, like I guess in like a utilitarian sense, like if it is damaging to you and to your psyche, right?
Mhm.
It probably is like in some like balanced way unethical, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like contributing to a worse world overall.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. But I'm just like imagine a person who uses this to cope or some shit. I don't know. They have some weird. Actually, maybe sexual. Let's go back to violence, right? Okay, they're very. Sorry, you know they serve different purposes, right? Like okay. Let's say a very violent person, right, has like tons of intrusive thoughts about like wanting to kill people, and the only way they can cope with it, and the only way they can prevent themselves from not committing murder, is by sort of like getting these ideas out on the page, kind of like when you are very
It's just extremely
emotional and you have
unhealthy.
right exactly. Well, let's say you're very emotional, you have problems on your plate. This is a very normal human thing. It
Yeah.
helps to talk to others, right?
Mhm.
You know, it helps like talk out your issues. Let's say this person is very unstable. They have a lot of issues to work through with, right? They're a very violent individual, right?
Mhm.
Um, and the only way and the main way they deal with this is like drawing. I mean, I would say, you know, like that's probably the way to go, right? I mean, maybe this is a very fabricated example, and in general, like I agree. Like most people, it's probably just like unhealthy, like I don't
Yeah.
know, like
I mean, what if you're
like
If it's gotten to that
indulgence.
point, I don't think you drawing it on the page is making you any better. I feel like, or writing it down
Interesting.
is really going to help. I don't
well, the
know.
question
I,
is
I
so
feel like at that point you're definitely very unhealthy.
right, but there's also a question here,
That's
right?
that's true,
If you're
but
having those types of thoughts, right, you're probably already not in the best mental space,
Yeah,
right? And
exactly.
so
Yeah.
perhaps this is your only way to cope with that stuff, right? So for example, let's say you're depressed, and then someone like, and you're also being bullied, right? Um,
yeah.
and art is the only thing that's helping you to express a way to like at least just get those emotions out of you so that you can continue to live your life. Um,
Well, I think it's like a situation. Like I think it's like if it's like you just draw like this, like like this dark, moody, like thing, and it's like, and that helps you cope. It's different than like I'm gonna actually draw a picture of me murdering this person. Like,
well, what if
like
it's
I think it's like the difference is
I
like
understand.
if
It's a
you draw
very
some like dark,
fabricated,
moody,
like
abstract thing that's like
right,
this
right.
represents like the inner feeling of my soul. I'll be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. You are very
yeah.
depressed and have problems, but like I don't know. I wouldn't say you're maybe mentally unwell. But if it's
Well,
like, yeah, here's my drawing of me killing person X, I'd be like, okay. Like, sure,
well,
that if that's helping you cope, but that I would be like terrified for my life if I was in the same room as you.
the thing
You know, so
there's an
Point
interesting question
taken.
here. There's an interesting question here. So, well, what if they're what if they're doing something in abstraction, right? So you can't tell what it is, right? But they know what it is, and it's them murdering someone or something like that in that image. Is that any different from it being hyper realistic? I don't know. But also beyond that, right? Um, I'm pretty sure if you go back like a couple hundred years, if you had actually had a problem with someone, you just fight them and like
wait,
you just
but wait, we
just,
don't want to go back
I
out.
hope that we
no,
as
no,
a society
no,
have
I'm
to
saying,
pass
I'm
just
saying,
kill people
I'm
in the street to
saying,
solve our
I'm
problems.
saying, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we no
Right.
longer have that as a potential, let's say, outlet to of
Right.
resolution
I
for
see
like
what you're
certain
saying.
things.
I see what
So
you're
let's say
saying,
you're just instead of having that moment and being able to resolve a situation through violence,
yeah.
right? Either through actually murdering someone or just having a very intense fight. Um, Instead, we are now, let's say, more locked into whatever situations that were it's like more difficult. It's like you can't just
You can't just kill the person and move on with your life.
yes, you can't just do that. um, and so as a result you need some other outlet to release that aggression, because as human beings, I mean, I feel like humans are a warlike race, so I think it's to some degree it is a part of us
Jesus.
in our existence, right? And so that part of us doesn't have as much, let's say, utility in the what we would classify as the civilized world, but it's still there, right? It's still there, and certain different people will manifest it to different degrees. But finding ways to, let's say, either cope with it or utilize it in a less destructive manner is something that would be the preference in our modern world, right? And so, well, maybe art is that for you, or maybe boxing or doing some other thing. I don't know. I'm just giving examples. Like doing something else, or like playing football or whatever it is. Maybe those things are what allow you to do that.
Right.
Going back to the
Okay.
going back though, I think the biggest
Way back.
Yeah.
We
I think
went
that
The conversation derailed maybe a little bit, but
yeah.
wow. R.I.P. Atrioc.
Right.
Anyway.
R.I.P. Atrioc. I think that's the real crux of the situation.
That's the main takeaway here.
Yeah, honestly, I don't have an idea as to what the difference is between a traditionally drawn image versus a virtual image, if they're very, very indistinguishable from the original
Excellent.
person, right? I
wanted to
don't
talk
know.
about this. Okay. All right, interesting. So this was like something that came up on, God, it was some subreddit I'm sub to, like some art subreddit or something. I don't know. Anyway, basically, obviously, with like these AI generated art things, they had a bunch of AI art submissions, and people were getting upvoted and awards or whatever. Maybe they had some like, I know. Oh, there was another, like, there was like, wasn't there like a few different art competitions where people submitted AI art pieces and like they won or they got prize money or
I
whatever,
think
right?
so.
Yeah. I guess, what do you guys think about AI art being used? First, let's start on, like, let's say Reddit in like a public forum, right? What do you guys think about people posting AI art and not labeling it as such? Is that a problem?
I think it's a problem if you try to take credit for it beyond the prompt that you provided.
I'd probably agree. I think it should be labeled as AI art.
Mhm.
Because there's a difference between having like the skill to actually like paint something, and then like just being like, draw me a a guy standing by a river, as opposed to actually doing it. Especially since like the whole thing with the AI art too is that people like, people are like, oh, I just use it as like a tool. It's no different from like using like Photoshop or something. But like but like with Photoshop, it's not like you still have to create a base image yourself for the most part, unless you're like blatantly copying and pasting something off the internet and putting it in Photoshop. With like AI art, like you're creating something, but you're also creating something that is derivative based on what the model is trained on, which is most likely other people's work.
So
Yeah, I completely agree.
there are two questions that I have here that I've been thinking about. One is, are you just allowed to take any and all images from the internet to train those art generation tools? I think the answer is yes, because you have posted it online. It is no longer your property. Now, you can still sell your artwork if you want to.
Ooh, it's no longer your property.
Well, so
Woo!
So I think that if you posted an image
Spicy.
of your art on Instagram, right? Anyone can copy and paste that and post it on their page. You would hope that they would do the right thing and give you credit for it. If they're reposting your work or whatever, I think that's just something that you should do just to be a decent person. But the image itself, like, I can print out that image if I wanted to and put it on my wall. I don't think I have to pay you to do that. If I choose to, I can go on your website and buy that artwork and support the artist. I think that is the choice. That is the choice that artists are putting themselves in, right? And what some artists do is they put a watermark or something that prevents them from getting the full image directly just off of their social media feeds or whatever. I think that is the smart way to go about it, where they don't just get your full image for free. Maybe you post a lower resolution image, whatever. There are ways to work around it and to be smart and protect yourself. But you're ultimately choosing to put them on public platforms where they can be shared and everyone can look at them for free. People can print them out for free. I think that is just a fact, right? So,
well, the problem derives from not necessarily just like doing that, but the problem a lot of artists have is with the stealing art is like, if I stole someone's art, put it on a T-shirt, and then sold that T-shirt for $25.
Yeah, that's
where
right.
the problem comes from. And a lot of problem with the the problem is similar with AI art. Like the whole reason this country started is because that guy won like that art competition. I think it was like somewhere, it was some city, but like it was like some city. He won like the local art competition with something that was completely AI generated.
He won like $500 or something. I remember this.
Yeah, so it's like at that point, like, can you argue that like if your piece of art was part of the training model that the AI art was derived from, can you say, oh well, he stole my art to make that other art? Because like, is it any different from me like taking someone's Like, because it's all derivative. Like, is it different from me taking somebody's art, copy, pasting it into Photoshop, putting a couple filters on it, then putting it on a T-shirt and selling it for $25?
So
Like, would you argue that I still stole their art, or like, what is the point where it's like you've done enough, or it's not like derivative anymore, and it's just like you modify? Like, where's like the line where it's like I modified it enough that it's my own, rather than it just being a derivative thing?
Right, and what you said was going to be my second point, which is how much effort does the quote unquote artist have to put in for it to actually be their artwork, as opposed to, let's say, the art that's simply owned by the AI art tool, right? So if you just plug in a prompt and you get a result, well, you can say the effort that I put in was designing the prompt. Well, it depends, right? So like I actually did some art generation, and I like put in like when pigs fly, when hell freezes over, or something, right? I was curious just to see what would pop up, and there was one image that it just looked like a photorealistic pig on snow or something, right? And I'm like, well, I didn't put much effort into that, so I wouldn't classify that as a piece of AI art that I own, right? However, maybe someone else would in the current state of things, right? But my thing is like, I think that again, I think Alex, you had mentioned this, right? People are saying that they're using it as a tool, and I think using it as a tool means that it's not just the generation that you're doing. I think that there's a complexity to the prompt, but then also either what I've appreciated is when artists use it as a reference for a final art piece that they're going to do. I think that's perfect.
That's what I was just about to say. I was gonna say I feel like it should just be a tool. Like it should be something that gives you like a guideline for something that you want to create. Like just like putting in a prompt and like being like, oh, here's my piece of art. Right. It's like you really didn't do anything. You just put in a prompt. You just put in, I want A B C, generate an image for me.
Well, didn't an image comic become created using art generation, where they wrote an entire comic book by giving it prompts, and they wrote out the entire script or whatever, because they're a writer but they're not an artist, right? The question is, well, do they own the artwork for that? And I see the thing is there, I would say yes, because they wrote an entire script for it, but that's the difficulty, right? It's like, where do you draw the line there?
Okay. So it seems like there's a vague line, and you're trying to draw the line based on the amount of effort being put into the art.
Yes.
Right? That seems like roughly like the metric you're trying to use. Like, okay, I'm not sure if this is the best metric, but let's just roll with it for a second, right? Let's say you're an ML engineer and you made the fucking model, right? You scraped everything online, you made the freaking model, right? You put in thousands of hours into developing this thing, right? Is any subsequent art created with this model like good to go? Like,
I think you have partial ownership of everything that you've generated because you created.
Okay, yeah. I mean, ownership is one thing, but I mean, like.
But I think you at least need.
I don't know.
Credit.
I wouldn't know if I'd argue have ownership. I mean, is it any different from like say like people make like custom brushes and stuff for like Photoshop all the time? Are you saying like anybody who uses my brush, I get partial ownership of your art?
No, because
it's the same thing where people say AI generation is just a tool that leads to the final product.
No. What if they use it to generate art for themselves, right? Not talking about them giving it to someone else using their tool, right? They make the tool and then they generate the art. Like it's all their
100%.
Own.
They own everything.
100%.
They create
so like if someone, like if I made the model and someone came to me like, can you generate a piece of art that does this?
No.
No.
You're an artist, right?
So say you're an artist, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so say I created a model, right, that generates AI art.
Like the artist created the entire model themselves.
And then I use it to create my own artwork. I think at that point you own everything because you put in every ounce of effort for all of the things that are being produced there.
But you didn't put in any effort for the input, right? The input data.
That's what I'm saying. The input data, you would have to make sure.
If the input data is your artwork, then fuck it. You're right?
So then,
I'm just saying, the input data is like all.
Like the input data is a bunch of just random people's art online. Like, what do you still have ownership over that? Like, because it's like it would be any different if because like it's like if someone's like, oh, you can repost my art, just give me credit. But like if it's like I take their art, put it into a model, and then change it through a model, do I still have to give them credit that I used their original art as an input source from my model?
So even if I made the model. This is an interesting question because
I feel like I would argue you would have to you would say I created this using AI art and I used persons A, B, and C's art as the inputs for my model.
I disagree, and this is why. if you look at any artist talking about videos of how they created artwork, right? If you look at any comic book artist, they have droves of images that they've found across the internet that they use for references and things like that. They still have the fundamentals of like what they understand for anatomy, but they always have models, multiple different things that they're referencing to create their artwork. And on top of that, so that's how pretty much every professional artist uses references for their work, right? And so they don't credit every person that they have references off of. They don't do that. That doesn't exist, right? So if I reference 10 pieces of artwork as a inspiration for my own artwork, right? I'm not recreating the exact same thing that occurred there, but I use those 10 different pieces as references, right? So
Mhm.
I think that becomes the same thing. But only in the case where you also created the model for generation. I think that's the simplest one.
So
But because no,
this is
I think that
That makes sense.
so I think
If
that's
you
the
created the
simplest
model
case. I think
entirely,
that's the simplest case because you have done
yeah.
all of the work to take these references and create what you want to create out of them. You've done everything, right? Because
Yeah.
the reference element, that's something that every artist ever has done for all of history.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. No, you have not done everything, right? It's like you didn't research the background technology that created this thing, you know? You didn't fucking like build the table that where your computer sits on, right? Like I feel like at any arbitrary point in the line, you can decide that there's like a sufficient amount of effort that you put in where it's sufficiently yours. At the end of the day, I'm not really buying like this effort argument. Like I think it's less about the effort and more about like is it sufficiently original? Like this is how copyright
Yeah.
works, you know?
It was
Like if it's a sufficiently original idea, even if it was really fucking easy for you to make it, then it's yours. You know?
well,
It's
it,
just like I think it's the same sort of idea here. Like I don't know like
Yeah, like I don't know
ethically
if
speaking,
AI art is
I don't know.
sufficiently original enough when it's just trained on other people's art. It feels is
Ooh, I'm
that
on
so, is
I'm on
that
the
the
other
argument,
side,
is that
but
the
yeah,
argument you're
okay.
trying to make? Whereas like is AI art sufficiently original enough even though it's being trained on other people's art? Was that the
art is a
argument?
reflection of the skill of the artist as well, right? So any piece of art reflects the creativity of an artist and their skill level. Those are, I think, the two of the pieces. Probably other things too, but that's just what I'm thinking of at the top of my head, right? In this case, the skill is your understanding of neural networks,
The model
CNNs,
works.
whatever you're training, all of that, right?
Right.
That is your understanding, right?
That's your tool.
Right.
Yeah.
That is your.
That's your paintbrush.
Well, no, I don't think that's your paintbrush because you created it as well. Because
Okay.
for an
Well,
artist,
okay,
right?
okay,
For an artist, if you're
But I
if,
think we're
say
saying
you're a
it's
figure
a
art,
situation where someone uses like Dolly E like to make it, then it would be your
right?
paintbrush.
Well, I think your paintbrush is your computer, let's say, but like,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay, okay. I'm with you.
Your
I'm with
paint,
you. I'm with
your
you.
key,
All
your
right, okay,
keyboard
okay.
as well, or whatever, right? Whatever your prompt is, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but your skill is your knowledge in that in whatever you're trying to do, which is specifically creating the neural network that's doing the task, right? For traditional art, it could be your anatomy skills, your landscaping understanding, your perspective, whatever, all of that stuff. But in this case, it is your understanding of the machine learning concepts, right? And your ability to implement them specifically, right? Because you can have an understanding of things but not know how to implement it or whatever, right? Or you can just try to implement it very poorly because you don't have a strong foundation, right? You could do either or. But on top of that, you have the whatever tool you're using. So it could be a paintbrush, it could be a pencil, it could be your keyboard, mouse, computer, right? So I think that because in this case it's a reflection of your ability to create, I think that it becomes your work because you've done. And again, I'm trying not to make this an effort thing, but it's like it's a reflection of your knowledge base
Mm-hmm.
in that scenario. So
Well, I will agree with that point, but I think a lot of artists have with this AI art is in terms of the effort. Like if I could just like the argument you were making with the comic strip before, the guy didn't know how to draw, so he just went into like AI generator and was like, make me art for this comic, and he
Right.
did it. Like so, like if we're okay, if we're in agreement that like that's art. Like, what's preventing every artist ever from just losing their job because it's quicker and cheaper than for just putting it into an AI? I think that's the problem artists have is that like, sure, it's like you could art like if you're putting the amount of effort into it, like you're saying, like then I would agree that it's probably art. But a lot of problems I have is like a company like any big company is like I don't want to pay an artist.
Mhm.
I'll just put a simple prompt into an AI and get what I need out of it.
Right.
Is that like I think it's more so than that at that point I would argue, well, they didn't really put any effort into it. They just get a basic prompt just to try and not pay any artists,
Right.
fair pay for what they're using.
So
I guess there's like two issues here. Like, so like it's like two different.
Yeah, I would say think it's two
like,
issues.
you guys. So it's like basically what Alex is saying is like, okay, hold on. So, okay, so the problem
you can
we're
argue
talking
if it's
about-
art or not. That's one argument. But then the argument is if it is art, is it an ethical way to do art where you're sacrificing
Well, I think
the
within-
livelihoods of people?
Within
Okay.
the ethics of the art, there's like part A, which is like, okay, it was sourced from other people, so is that ethical, right? And then
Yeah.
there's part B, which is like, well, if I don't inform people of how it was made, or like I sort of circumvent the natural artistic process, that feels manipulative, or that feels like misleading, right? And like that's so like there's two problems, right? First, like the process itself of actually making it, right, might be sort of like infringing on people's property rights and whatnot, right? And then also like it's kind of like it's almost like you're lying to people about like how it was made, sort of thing.
I think another thing that was
I don't
interesting
know.
that Alex mentioned was the potential for artists to lose their jobs because it's faster, cheaper, etc. Right? I think that's an interesting idea. I don't think that relates to whether or not it's actually art, but I will throw out something.
I was arguing that as a part of a different argument.
Yeah,
Like, it was like
yeah.
if everybody in the world agreed that it was art, like
Right.
that entire argument aside, would you argue that it is ethical to use that to generate your art instead of paying an artist who will take like twice as long to give you a similar product? Like, is it ethical for that person to lose their job to use AI art instead?
Right. I don't have an answer for you. I have an interesting story that's actually quite similar. It's not AI technology, but I don't know exactly when this happened, but one of my professors in college was telling us about when he was working at a company, and they were generating. Do you remember in like school when we used to have those tests at the nurse's office where they would check if we could hear different sounds and whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he had a team with him that he was working with that generated a system that could test like 30-40 people at once, right? And this was probably like 20 years ago or something like that. It was a long time ago, and they were hired to do this job, and it worked. It was a working system, and they weren't. So the biggest problem was, well, are people just going to raise their hand when other people raise their hands or whatever? They had it randomized so that different people would hear sounds at different times and stuff like that. So it was a very cool piece of technology. It worked exactly as intended, and it could achieve the same effect of doing those tests much faster than just having one person at a time being tested by one nurse or whatever, right? This technology ended up never being used because of, I think it was the nurses union or something, basically said that this would take away the ability for them to get paid to do those hours or whatever. It would reduce their I forget exactly
their way of living.
Yeah, essentially it would make it faster for them just to not need as much nurses to be working and doing that stuff, right? And so I believe I don't remember what the exact argument was, but the basic idea was it would reduce the need for the nurses to be working during those hours, right? Because it would reduce the amount of work, right? And that is, I think, a similar situation where it's like a new technology has emerged and now it can displace people's jobs. This also applies.
You could say the same thing where it's like McDonald's. Like now they have you don't have to go to the cashier anymore. You can just order on like a terminal. Like people lose their jobs for the sake of automation. Like I mean, this is like a whole argument in general. But like, where does the line drawn where you're like automating it for efficiency's sake versus not automating it so people could have a livelihood.
Right.
Like,
I mean,
where is the
even
line where
autonomous
they're
vehicles
cutting?
fall under this route as well, where it's like, well, truck drivers could probably lose their jobs based off of this. Maybe even potentially, at some point down the line, Uber drivers could no longer exist. It's
Yeah.
all just robotic and automated.
If everything
whatever, right?
if everything becomes automated, what are people going to do?
Right.
Where would you work?
Right.
Where this could be where it becomes up the problem, but
Hey, isn't Elon's solution just to give everyone a baseline salary or something? Isn't that his solution?
well, I mean, that is one way to solve the
Right.
universal basic income, but
Right.
that's a
Yang
whole-
2036. Anyway, oh my god, forget about that guy.
Yeah.
Yo, look, it's absolutely absurd to like this nurses union situation. If like the details are correct, sounds absolutely ridiculous to me. Like, I understand people want to protect their jobs, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking, like, from my perspective, right? If my job could be completely replaced by a robot, I would like it would suck to lose my job, but I would completely understand from like
Well, what if you're 20?
It's a tough situation because by automating stuff like that,
Like,
it is a benefit to society as a whole.
Right.
But like things will be done more quickly and efficient, but at the same time,
like
a good portion of people will be
on,
But what
a
if
good
you're
portion
20,
of people will lose a
into your
livelihood.
career? You can't just not everyone is, let's say, like us in our 20s. We could pivot still, right?
Yes.
Well, I guess technically speaking, right, regardless wherever you are, you can still pivot. But a lot of the time, when you're 50, 60 years old, you're not like a lot of people aren't ready to do that anymore, right? They want their life to be where it is, and it's understandable because you've worked your whole life to where you are.
Look,
and
I'm not saying it's not understandable. Like, of course, understandable. Like from a personal perspective, you want to like protect your like livelihood, right? But in aggregate, like, no organization should be making like that sort of decision, like to like not advance technologically because they want to protect their people.
Well, a union's purpose is to protect its people, right? So that's
okay.
The entire basis
I guess
of a union,
unions
right?
are against like, oh my god.
But
like it's just like it's not like there's a reason why 99% of people today aren't farmers.
Well, at the same time, though, by your logic, right? The art argument is, well, it's easier, it's cheaper, it's an advancement of technology, so you should allow it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if in 100 years, like, movies were like 80-90% generated by computers. But what I'm saying is, like, as human beings, we value seeing human art, right? And so there's some sort of intrinsic value being created there. But in a market system, we are trying to produce some element of value as quickly and efficiently as possible. And the value just isn't there, right?
I would say that a
term,
lot of people don't really care about the intrinsic human quality of artwork in the modern age. I think there are a lot of people that wouldn't care. And I disagree with that. I disagree with that idea.
Like,
I think that you should care whether or not it's been generated by an artist, like a real artist, or like, again, I don't, like you said, this is a bad metric, but like the amount of effort or time or skill that was used to produce whatever they're doing, I think that is supposed to be a major factor, because that was kind of that is kind of the essence of what art is, right? It is all of those things that come together to make the art.
And it contributes to the enjoyment of the art. Like, you generally, you feel like a connection to the artist. You have respect for what they've created. Like, it's part of that human experience. I don't really think that's going to go away. And I imagine in like 2100 or whatever, computers might be able to create like novels on the level of like the top human writers. But I think we will still have, in some way, at least some portion of the population will have preference for novels written by humans, because they feel like there's an actual connection there and they can't get behind something that wasn't created by a human being.
I disagree. I disagree. And the reason I disagree is I think right now it matters a lot. I think that in 30 years, the convenience of it will take over. I think that it will
convenience of what exactly?
The speed with which you can get different books, the speed with which you can get shows, the speed with which, because I think that we are very much a group or a.
So you're saying in like 30 years you would want to watch AI. You think the convenience of AI generated stuff just coming out all the time benefits the creative effort put behind is more important than the creative effort being put behind it.
So I
Like
think
if someone,
that
if I could get a, would you say saying you'd rather have like an AI generated show like every week versus like a human created show like every month?
So I think that the ease with
Like,
which you can, I think that human beings, right, will over time prefer what is easier. I guess in a lot of ways.
From a
Um,
business perspective,
uh,
you're not talking about the consumer, right? Because I mean,
I'm
like,
talking about the
or are
consumer.
you?
I'm talking about the consumer end, right? So we,
I feel like it's already pretty
Well,
easy for the consumer. I don't think it matters if it's a human or an AI that makes it. I just have to sit down and turn on the TV.
so let's say you
That's
Like,
what
can
I'm
get
saying.
you can
I
get
agree.
like let's say you can get 20 episodes of a show per year
Mhm.
versus 52 episodes, so like one per week for the entire year, right? I think that um most people would say, well, I'd prefer to have more of the show because it's an enjoyable show and I like having it every single week. And so if the speed is increased and the show is on the same
I see what you
quality,
mean. I see
right?
what you mean.
On a consumption
Okay.
level, I don't think people will hold out forever on that front.
Okay.
In
So
the
so
sim-
we are kind of on the same page actually, because I thought when I said business, right,
Mhm.
I didn't mean like or when I said you when I was asking whether or not you were talking about business or consumer, right,
Right.
I didn't mean like literally are you talking about like
cutting
here let
costs
me
like
just
on
say
the production
what my
side.
perspective was. Basically, I agree with you. Basically, I agree with you in that like I feel like it will be easier for businesses to meet the demand of consumers um with AI generated material in the future. And so in
Right.
that actually I think I agree with your point. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on the art
So
side of
that's what
things,
you're arguing is like that, since it'll be easier for companies to keep up with consumer demand
right.
using AI generated tech. Consumers will eventually prefer the AI
Yeah.
generated stuff because it is more meets their demands.
Yeah, I also think that on the art side of things, most people look at art for about 5 seconds and then go to the next piece of art. It's unfortunate. It's
Mhm.
unfortunate, like, right?
Yeah.
So like even when you look at a lot of artwork that's popular on Instagram or like just social media in general, a lot of it's fan art or like art of existing artists or sorry, not artists, of existing like anime or like pop culture items or like TV shows, actors, things like that, right? So there are people that you already know and characters that already exist and stuff like that. Those are like the most popular. Very difficult for someone to create something original and then make it popular, right? But that's like
Mm-hmm.
majority of what people are consuming. It's art of things that they're already fans of, right? But they watch it, they look at it, they think it's cool. Maybe they save it, you know, that's very possible. Maybe they meme it, right? Make a meme out of it or something like that, right? There are things that people can do to interact with it, but by and large, I feel like most people aren't sitting there staring at the craftsmanship behind the artwork anymore. And that I think is the key distinction now, where it's like in 20 years people won't care, especially if you're looking at images generated on computers, right? If you're looking at an image that's drawn on a tablet versus generated by an AI, um, are people going to really sit there and be like,
No, I
"Wow, the
I'm with
brushstrokes,
you.
man"?
I'm with
Um,
you. Like imagine like why would a company fund a team that can only make it's exactly the example you used that can only make an episode a month when they can make a similar or even higher quality episode in a week with AI
right.
materials, of course. And
Um,
probably at the bottom line is that it'll be like some combination where like
yes.
the AI is the tool, but at the end of the day, it's the human making the final decision on whether or not they enjoy it. Sort of like the validation system. But yeah, maybe like end to end. Um, Media being created by human beings might be dwindling to a stop. Yeah, which is kind of sad,
Yeah.
honestly.
I
See,
think
but
that
then see the problem I have is that if AI makes every job ever easier, what are you supposed to do as like a species? Like, what are you just supposed to sit there and just consume content?
right.
Like,
So
are we just destined to become like the people in the chairs like in Wally? Like, I feel like if
dude, I've been
everything is just
thinking about that
automated and
recently,
controlled by
man.
AI,
I've
like
been
That's a
like if everything is just automated and
like
done by AI and nobody has a job or anything to strive for, what are we? If I was brought into this world, what am I supposed to do? What is my motivation to do
so
anything besides just sit there and
yeah.
consume content?
right.
I guess this comes to like a broader question of like when do you guys think like artificial intelligence will become sufficiently generalized to like replace more or less everybody in
Like an office
society, like
worker or
all
something in any
like all
position.
elements of work. Yeah,
Right. So I don't.
yeah.
I don't think. I don't know if it would ever
I
replace
think that
all elements of
yes.
work.
So
I feel like there'll be some work that will require a human, but eventually it feels like I would say the vast majority of work can be probably relegated to some type of combination of like AI, machine learning, robotics, stuff like that. But there will always be something that requires a human that I feel like that AI can't do.
I think
I feel
that
like.
the largest area that most people will end up working in is oversight and ethics of artificial intelligence. I think that's going to be the main thing that most people work in. So either on a small scale or a larger scale, depending on how good you are at your job, right? You can get promoted in whatever that hierarchy is. But at a baseline, you'll be looking at artificial intelligence, what they're generating, and whether or not if there are any ethical quandaries or issues that are appearing, figuring out
The
how
problem I have,
to
the
address those
problem I have
things.
with this is that like so you're saying like in the future everybody will be destined to just basically one type of job. Like I feel like that's like, is this like the future we're working towards? That feels like so like dystopian
Right.
to me. What if somebody was like, I want to grow up, and be a musician, but it's like, oh, you can't do that. Nobody's hiring musicians anymore. Everything's just generated by AI. It's like I feel like everybody, if you're forcing everybody to relegate to just one track of life, isn't that like that's like
Right.
the
I agree.
peak of
That's going to be a
dystopia?
big problem.
I don't think
That's
I don't think that's the
Well,
direction that society should go.
or I mean, okay, so here's the like some small problem I see. Currently, we live in a capitalist society where basically the amount of value you get back is the amount of value you put in from an economic perspective, right?
Hmm.
And that can be problematic because, like you're saying, like if you're a musician and no one's hiring musicians, um, although I think maybe musician is a strange example because people might still want to go to like live orchestra and see people play, you know,
Oh,
right?
okay. Well, I
But
was just using that
I
like
get what you're
some type of like
saying.
some type of like art related field. Or even if you want to
Yeah,
be like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
want to grow up and be like a screenwriter. I'll be like, oh
Yes,
no, we
exactly.
can't
Yeah, yeah.
hire
right.
screenwriters anymore. The
Exactly.
AI does it all for us.
Right, right, right.
The job doesn't exist anymore.
Point noted.
You
Point
know,
noted. Yeah, yeah.
So
So
I
yeah.
like,
So
don't think
so
music's
like,
all
like,
that
hold on,
different,
hold on,
but
hold on.
okay.
So like, let's like, okay. So in the current capitalist system, that's a problem because you're no longer providing value. Now you're gonna be homeless or whatever, right? Like,
yeah.
if you choose to be like a screenwriter, let's say,
Mhm.
in this sort of dystopian future. But I mean, I think this is kind of like where people want to head. At least some people start talking about this idea. We talked about like a universal basic income at some point, right? Like we might head to a world where work is very minimal and most people actually don't do all that much work and mostly just pursue what they want to do. Like I don't know if you guys saw recently there was a trial of a 4-day work week in the
England?
UK.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was with like I don't know a couple hundred companies or something. Maybe I have that number wrong, but I don't know, a few thousand employees. And it was very successful. The companies made more or less the exact same amount of money. I think their revenue even increased, which would be expected because of inflation. Um, and they just worked 1 day less a week. So yeah, I feel like we're slowly on the beginning of this trend where as resources become more abundant, as things become more automated, um, either we'll invent some new things to do, or we'll just we'll have more time to do what we want, which is very, very
Yeah.
possible.
Mhm.
So with that, there is a question, right? Where if everyone just gets the universal basic income, or if they're just working minimal jobs or whatever it is, I'll go with the minimal universal income. Um, so if everyone's getting paid the same amount and all of that, right? I think that will still create a very clear disparity between the people that are just surviving off that and the, let's say, the
People who actually own
small,
the companies.
yeah, the small amounts of people that are managing and controlling all of these AI components that are essentially doing all the jobs, doing everything that the world needs to function.
Right.
So I think there is a question there as to how do you prevent that increase in
From
disparity,
basically
reduction of the middle class, all of that.
production being controlled by just a few people.
Right, right.
What are you saying? Right?
And I don't know if there is really a way to do that. Do you like are you going to force the people that like the only people that are intelligent slash capable slash working those types of hours and stuff like that to still get the same amount of money as the people that aren't doing that stuff? Like how do you equalize that?
Oh,
And I don't think you.
the government should control the means of production. That's right. Everybody should get the same amount of money. You line up at the grocery store to get your bread tonight, honey. Alright. You know, money is an artifact of the past. Anyway,
Um,
no. Obviously, look, I think communistic ideas like this have failed.
yeah,
And you bring up an excellent point. If industries become more consolidated and more powerful, how do you maintain any sort of economic or social balance in a capitalist system where there are fewer jobs than people who are able to work them?
right.
Yeah, we might be fucked, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, also the idea is like with the reduced work week, right? Let's say you do have the universal base income or whatever, and you have just a reduced number of days in the week, maybe 3 or 4 that you have to work, or maybe it's just like 4 hours a day, or whatever the hell it is, right? You're not working as much as you can. Your remaining time would ideally be used for some type of fun slash creative endeavors that you can do for the rest of your life, things that may or may not have commercial utility, but like just things that you want to do, right? That would be the some type of ideal. Well, I would say that the people that are most creative, most capable, whatever, would probably be able would probably prefer to have more more resources at that point to others, because let's say others are dwindling them on things that aren't as necessary, or like say you give everyone the same amount of stuff, um, but like one person is capable of doing more with those things in their free time, more interesting things or whatever. Like there are issues that will arise on that front still, because not all people are the same. Some people are more creative, some people are more intelligent. Like, so it's difficult to be like, oh yes, everyone just gets whatever that universal basic income is, because some people will be more or less happy with different amounts as well. So it's an interesting thought process that I have there as well, where it's like, yes, you can equalize it, but that doesn't take into account the differences in the individual as well, because it's the same amount of resources can be used in widely different ways by different people. Um,
And this might enforce the urgency now before artificial intelligence systems completely transform our economy, potentially for the long haul. It might enforce the urgency now of changing sort of how we look at wealth inequality and what is deserved.
mm-hmm.
Because I mean, obviously, it's been a big topic in politics lately. Shrinking
Right.
middle class and whatnot. But I think there's a serious argument to be made that like perhaps the most successful people don't deserve the relative amount of wealth they have. Um, and if we don't lock in some sort of value system that surrounds that idea now, um, then when the power dynamic becomes all that much more extreme, um, it's extremely skewed towards those hyper few individuals who've been extremely successful with this AI revolution. Um, it might almost be too hard to go back. I mean,
Right.
I could envision a world where we make some dramatic changes now to how
I
we
don't think that will
do
happen though.
I mean, I'm not saying it's like super realistic or anything, but I mean, I can envision a world where we make some policy changes now that somewhat flatten the curve. And the government, as we transition into this age of AI, maintains that sort of more flattened structure and ensures that there's a greater level of equality. Um,
But do you necessarily
um,
I see the diff
is
the
it is
Mhm.
it like realistic? I don't know, but I don't see a way other than government enforcement that naturally through the will of the market we don't see some sort of huge disparity between certain groups.
Right. Well, I also think there is an issue there, because I think at that point it's no longer capitalism, right? Because in the capitalist regime, it's like the people that the community has decided provide the most value, ideally, are the ones that are going to get the
Mhm.
most business, the most money, the most
Yeah,
resources for what they've put out to the rest of the world,
sure.
right?
But
Uh,
that would still be true.
well, if you're equalizing it at that point,
Well, I'm not saying literally dead flat. I'm just saying currently we have a dramatic exponential curve
uh
in
huh,
terms of wealth in just America or on the planet. Period. Right.
right,
Well, what if it was more of a gradual slope sort of thing?
right.
Right. What if we enforce some softer limits? On that progress.
Yeah, I think that's a very idealistic idea.
I agree. I
It
don't
is
think
extremely idealistic.
But
Yes.
I think also when you get into the nitty gritty of something like that, it's like I don't think you can do that without pretty much everyone having a reason to feel slighted to some degree. Maybe some people will think that they deserve more. Some people will be like, "Well, I'm being negatively impacted by this," and
Of course. I
so
mean, of
like,
course, like, when you raise taxes on very wealthy people, they're gonna get angry, like, yeah,
right, right, right.
like, it's inevitable. But I'm saying, like, a slow and steady intention transition towards something closer to this ideal,
Mm-hmm.
um, could bear a lot of good. And, there honestly, I don't know, the more we've been having this conversation, it just seems to me like there's a greater danger as to sort of like a long-term value lock-in, through like an AI powered economy.
Right.
I don't know. Look, the middle class has already been shrinking. Like things are continuing to get more difficult. People, more people are being pushed towards the bottom, and a fewer number of people are being pushed towards a very very slim like top of the economic stratosphere. And that's only going to continue to happen. Just the way economics works, right? Like money makes more money exponentially, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, the government just to step in. I don't know, bro. Could be a scary future. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, something we all have to look forward to.
Let's go.
Wonderful. We get to live through it.
Well, hope you weren't tired of living through history yet, boys. We still got more ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be an
Yeah.
exciting time. We're an interesting we were born in a very interesting time, very like a pivotal time, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's just the blow up of technology throughout our lives is just
Insane.
astronomical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a cassette player when I was like in preschool. Now
Right.
most people don't
Yeah.
even know what the hell a cassette player or a cassette even is.
Yeah. Right.
I think
Kids have
our
no idea like what a VHS tape are.
No,
Even
no
like
clue.
even like CDs. Like I feel like a lot of
Yeah,
kids might not know what a
CDs.
CD
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
yeah.
CDs have been out fashion for forever
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meanwhile now I just if I have any external device, it's like a 2 terabyte hard drive. That's all I like. That's the I'm not gonna carry around a little
Right.
stick anymore either. It's like
Yeah.
you're gonna
Yeah.
have a lot of memory alongside you with a very small brick, I guess. Very
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Also, I remember. I think my first family computer or whatever. I think it had a floppy disk uh, slot as well. And I remember
Yeah. Same.
I never really I don't think I ever used a floppy disk.
Yeah.
But like I've seen like a
I never
couple of
used a
them
floppy disk.
at my house when I was younger, but like I've never actually had to use one. I was always using like if anything a memory stick, a USB. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I had a bunch of old
it's
CDs,
strange.
yeah, but yeah. I remember my computer when I was like 8 or something, I think had 1 gigabyte of
Hmm.
RAM, and that was like pretty good. Like, and now like I think like my phone has like 4 or something.
Uh huh.
Like, it's just crazy. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
and I feel like desktops, it's like you at least need 8, but like typically you'd want like
Yeah.
16ish if you really.
Eight's like the lower bound these days
Yeah.
for like good like quality performance.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's not even like you're looking for gaming. It's like
No,
you just
yeah,
need
yeah.
it. It's just useful.
Yeah, I mean, you need 8 if you want to run like web browser, Excel in the background or
Hmm.
something. I don't know. Like you're gonna be struggling on 4. Says
Yeah.
yeah, which is
Um,
absurd. Yeah, so,
yeah, it's crazy.
yeah. The future is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty, this has been a very intense conversation.
Oh wow, yeah, we've been going.
And
I
you've
We've
only
been
been
going.
up for 20 minutes before we started this, so that was a great way to start your day.
Yeah.
What a
Good morning,
deep
yeah.
Albert. Yeah.
conversation.
But no, I really liked this one. It was like there's a lot to
Uh,
talk about, and I think there's going to
yeah.
be a lot of changes. And I think in the next year, I feel like it's going to be a completely different landscape from where we're at right now. Like I feel like there's going to be a lot of conversations and growth, and even on policy level, I hope that more policy level things occur so that we have like more context as to what we're allowed to do, what those barriers are actually going to be, and stuff like that. It's going to be interesting to see where the chips end up falling. Um, yeah,
Mhm.
it's also just the amount of ethical questions surrounding these new emerging technologies is just insane. Yeah.
Well,
Alrighty. We're going to end off here today. If you guys enjoyed our conversation, please let us know
hit
in the
that
comments
subscribe
below.
button, ring that bell.
Yes, do all of that. Yeah,
Smash
let us
that
know.
like button.
What was that,
Sorry.
Larkin?
Yeah, I was just saying, smash that like button.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah.
yeah.
Let us know if you have any questions or thoughts on these topics as well. And yeah, subscribe for the next episode. See you guys later. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.